Good Thursday morning. I'm meteorologist Craig Moeller. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Weather Desk on this July 30th. It is Thursday, the weekend just around the corner. We've got a great show lined up for you, and we'll take a look at some of our headlines. You know, we have beautiful weather here in Hampton Roads, but that was not the case everywhere, and parts of the U.S. hit pretty hard yesterday. We'll start with a recap of some of the big problem areas around the country from yesterday, and I've got the severe weather outlook over the next couple of days as we step into the upcoming weekend. We'll let you know which parts of the country could see some severe weather. Also, more wildfire news, and we're going to take a look at some interesting wildfire-related stories, from how they're fighting the blazes out in Oregon to what's happening overseas. And the fires continue to be a big story from Europe. We'll talk about Spain, and we'll talk a little bit about Turkey, a new country affected by wildfire. And then this, I thought this was so interesting. Just recently, France officially recorded their first fire clouds. First time they've had a fire cloud, or what we call a pyrocumulonimbus cloud. If you don't know what it is, I'll explain how these things form and what's going on. And again, very, very rare. They never had one that they were certain was a result of these wildfires before in France. They had one just a few days ago. So we'll talk some more about that, and then we're going to talk more about the brand new drought monitor that just came out for the U.S. Some great news for Hampton Roads. I'll show you what's going on across the Commonwealth and down into North Carolina as well. We're also going to take a look at climate change and how this is creating more problems with mosquitoes and vectors that, you know, can spread viruses and some other health concerns. So all of this we'll break down, and I'll have the upcoming forecast for Hampton Roads and Northeast North Carolina through the upcoming weekend as well. But let's start off by taking a look live outside. What a gorgeous day. You can see the sun is shining. It is clear out there, and we are going to enjoy a lot of sunshine. These dry weathers, the dry weather that we are seeing today and for the next couple of days, really nice. We did get a few isolated cells last night. I mentioned that was a possibility down to the south. Those did develop yesterday, but they're now well offshore. One area that has not been so fortunate has been the Northeast. We're going to focus on that. You'll notice some unsettled weather back in the central U.S. and some areas of showers and storms back across parts of the north central U.S. as well. But let's come back to the Northeast, because you can see there are still a handful of flood advisories in place this morning. While it's dry here in Hampton Roads, there's a lot of heavy rain yesterday, which led to devastating flash flooding in the Northeast. And in one case in New Jersey, the flooding may have played a role in a family tragedy. Here's ABC's Hannah Battah.
Overnight, a search underway in New Jersey for a 10-year-old girl missing in the Passaic River, hours after flooding rains across the region. The girl was among 3 children who went into the fast-moving river. Another girl made it out alive, but her 10-year-old brother was found dead. Officials say he apparently died trying to save his sister's life.
As he was going under, he pushed her, and she ended up by the rocks, and she climbed out.
Heavy rain and flooding slamming more of the Northeast. Streets turning into rivers in Albany, New York. Cars submerged. Crews using inflatable rafts to rescue trapped drivers. And in Massachusetts, Worcester breaking a daily rainfall record. The extreme conditions stretching from coast to coast. In California, powerful Pacific swells continue to churn up dangerous rip currents and waves topping 10 feet. And now we're hearing from the rookie lifeguard who helped save this 10-year-old boy during that heart-stopping rescue in Santa Cruz. 16-year-old Ryder Williams says, "I'm grateful to have had the opportunity to return the child to his family safely. This is my job, and I love what I do."
I think he probably, from what I gathered, he assumed he was going to die. He was drowning. He knew he was drowning. He cannot express sufficient gratitude. There's nothing more valuable to me than my children.
Elsewhere in California, a dramatic rescue on the Kern River after a woman was swept downstream by the fast-moving current. The woman clinging to a rock before firefighters were able to throw her a flotation device and rope, pulling her to safety. Hannah Battah, ABC News, New York.
So glad that lady was okay. Great work by the fire rescue folks there on scene. Here's what we're going to talk about right now, the severe weather outlook for your Thursday. You'll notice the situation much quieter in the Northeast. They're delighted to have that. Things looking better across Texas and out to the west. But we do have a couple of areas that we are highlighting right now, and one of those, South Dakota down into Nebraska. A slight risk, level 2 from Pierre to Huron, back across Winter and Valentine as you go south. That's Norfolk, North Carolina, Nebraska, there in northern Nebraska, not Norfolk. We call it Norfolk, they call it Norfolk. And there's Columbus, you can see Kearney included in that, North Platte as well. So those parts of the country from Nebraska here that you see up through South Dakota, they are under that level 2 or slight risk. Marginal risk all the way down to just north of Wichita. You can see it is extend back up through much of Montana and even eastern Colorado there. You've got marginal risk for severe storms. Now, the primary threat, wind, could see some hail out to the west as well. So we'll continue to monitor that. The tornadic threat really isn't all that great there. So that's good news, but certainly wind and hail a concern for that part of the country. For the Florida Panhandle, all the way over, and now this has been extended from where it was down around Jacksonville all the way down through Daytona Beach. They do have a marginal risk. And again, this is for wind. So what about tomorrow? Well, let's jump ahead. You still have opportunities, just a level 1 or marginal risk from the Front Range in the Denver area all the way down into eastern portions of New Mexico. Marginal risk there. And back across Missouri, they're bracing for some potential stronger storms. Again, wind the primary concern. Looking ahead to Saturday, still eastern New Mexico with an opportunity for some severe storms, and then central portions of Kentucky and Tennessee down into northern Alabama, and that extends all the way up into southern parts of Indiana and southwest Ohio. Not a tremendous outlook as far as coverage goes for severe weather, but that's where we have storm chances through Saturday. All right, we're also going to take a look at the tropics, and I'm so happy to tell you guys right now in the Atlantic Basin, things are looking good from the Gulf across the Caribbean and all the way across over to the African coast. There's just nothing well organized. What you're seeing off to the east of the East Coast here, that's associated with a front. That front is still drifting eastward, and again, there's nothing there that's imminent as far as any development, tropical cyclone development or activity not expected over the next 7 days from the Hurricane Center. Now, as we look in the eastern Pacific, you remember Fausto, that's totally gone. Okay, so we don't worry about that anymore. Hawaii's in good shape. We do have Genevieve, and Genevieve is continuing as a hurricane. It is a weaker hurricane than it was. At one point, it was a Category 5. Now just a Cat 1 with winds of 90 miles per hour. It is going to continue to weaken as it moves along to the west-northwest, and eventually it'll wind down with cooler Pacific waters as it moves farther to the north. So aside from a little more wave action back towards Baja, really no problems at all from the tropics. All right, we're going to take a short break. Coming up, we've got a wildfire update. Wildfires are raging from Oregon all the way overseas to Turkey. I'll look at the efforts to combat them and how military members are helping in the fight. Welcome back to the Weather Desk. It's time to talk about the wildfires, and I wanted to start off by taking a look at Hampton Roads, and again, maybe a few of the brush fires out across central parts of Virginia and North Carolina may be contributing a little bit of haze or a little bit of wildfire smoke across our area. The story out in Oregon, a lot different. There is numerous wildfires and a lot of dense smoke for the eastern portions of Oregon into Idaho and back up into Montana. Some of that smoke actually working up into southern Canada. We also have some wildfires up in Washington State. So it's more of a problem out there. Now in Oregon, firefighters are getting help from hundreds of miles away. John Adams shows us how military crews based at Peterson Space Force Base in Colorado are helping with the fight.
This video, taken high above rural Oregon, follows the flight of an Air Force C-130 heading towards skies blackened by wildfire smoke.
If you see a 2 and 5 fly over, that's us.
The view from inside the cockpit shows what the pilot sees as they prepare to dump flame retardant on one of Oregon's wildfires. Major Kai Tran is the mission commander for a team stationed at the Peterson Space Force Base in Colorado Springs.
My job is to make sure that everybody is in the loop on whatever the operation needs.
Since early July, the team, along with 2 C-130 Hercules aircraft, have been temporarily flying out of Klamath Falls, helping in Oregon's firefighting efforts. Each plane has 6 crew members, including 2 pilots.
But we drop the retardant right next to dozer lines, or really just ditches, to help stop the fire from spreading further.
Major Tran says they've made about 75 drops thus far on fires burning all over the state.
Dropping almost 200,000 gallons of retardant.
It takes the C-130s about 15 minutes to reload flame retardant before they are up in the skies again, making multiple drops a day wherever they are needed. Major Tran tells us it's a rewarding mission for him and his team.
It's something that we love doing, protecting the community, protecting the people, and making sure that we safeguard people's livelihoods.
All right, we're going to turn our attention now overseas, where many countries are also dealing with multiple wildfires. This is a look right now at some new video overnight showing a fire burning in southwest Turkey. Crews say powerful winds have complicated efforts to stop the fire. More than 1,000 people around the area had to be evacuated. All right, we're also getting video out of England here. This is along England's Suffolk coast. The government there says we're preparing for fires after seeing the ones that tore across parts of France and Spain earlier through the summer. So emergency crews have already spent days fighting large wildfires in Wales and Scotland that forced people to evacuate from their homes. Now in Spain, the temperatures there continue to be very warm. You can see as we take a look at Madrid, 99 degrees, 88 around Bordeaux. These temperatures sweltering, and they're expected to be close to 100 degrees again through the weekend. And destructive wildfires, they have been raging. The country's weather service expects very high or extreme levels of fire danger through at least Sunday, with no rain in sight. CNN's Pau Mascara reports.
The blaze raging across western Madrid is now stabilized, according to the Spanish government. However, the fire spread with such intensity over the last few days that it reached places like this one. This is San Juan Reservoir, an artificial lake located 60 kilometers west of Madrid, a point that has been used by firefighters as a water resource, because we have seen how helicopters have come in here to collect water and drop on top of the active fire fronts. But as you can see here, some of the kayaks and boats that were in the spear are actually reduced to rubble, and you can get an intense smell of burnt plastic coming from here. But the flames not only engulfed this part of the reservoir, also a campsite that is located just a few meters from here.
I bought this caravan brand new 2 years ago and brought it here because we really love this place. As soon as there was a spot available here at our Dia Roja camping site, we moved it here to keep it permanently. And in less than a month, it burned down. A 30,000 euro caravan. I just can't believe it. I've lost my home because I was planning to move here to live. I have nothing left now. I was renting a place while I was waiting to move here.
Another consequence of the wildfires are the irreversible damages caused to dozens of businesses, such as this restaurant.
One of the businesses that burned down, as you can see, is this one right here. It was completely destroyed. We were very lucky with the other one. It only suffered minor damage. Thank God we were spared there. For me, the emotional loss is even greater than the financial one, because my family has been here for 3 generations. We have so many memories here, with our family and with our customers, and those moments will never come back.
As hot and dry conditions are set to persist for weeks, officials are appealing to the public to do everything they can to avoid sparking new wildfires. Pau Mosquera, CNN, San Juan Reservoir, Spain.
All right, now we're going to take a look at something that is very, very rare in France. In fact, it's the first known time that France experienced what we call a fire cloud, or technically what we call as meteorologists a pyrocumulonimbus cloud. Now, this occurred last Friday, all right, the 24th, and it was near Bordeaux in that region of France, southwest France. You might be wondering, what is a fire cloud? Now, NASA's actually referred to this as a phrase that kind of catches on as a fire-breathing dragon type of a cloud. What happens? You have wildfires burning, and they've had some massive wildfires, obviously, in that Bordeaux region of France. Those fires cause very hot air, obviously, around the fires. It rises rapidly, and that air, again, little smoke particles rise, and you get all that heat rising. Well, that ash acts as condensation nuclei for clouds to develop, and as that air rises and eventually cools a little bit, you get more and more clouds forming. Now, if the atmosphere is unstable enough, and typically it is when you get that much warmth and you get all of this condensation nuclei going on, it can actually create thunderstorms, get up into the stratosphere, and then you have thunderstorms. And as you get that air eventually cooling at the cold cloud tops, it gets heavy and it comes rushing down, and you could have powerful downbursts and outflow from these storms. But another big problem with these fire clouds is that you can also have what we call dry lightning. That's lightning that shoots out away from the main thunderstorm cloud, and when that occurs, sometimes additional wildfires can be sparked, kind of coming off the side and hitting more dry ground. So it can fuel even additional wildfires in addition to what created this fire cloud to begin. The other thing is, a lot of times you get very rapidly rising columns of fire, what we call fire tornadoes or fire whirlwinds. You get those, and they just create all kinds of hazards. They also can be very, very difficult to predict, because those downdrafts that occur with some of these storms can change the fire patterns rapidly on those trying to fight them. So again, this was a first ever in France that was at least recorded in France, and that occurred last week. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about it. For the record, in Australia and here in the western U.S., we actually get quite a few of these fire clouds. So we're familiar with them, but over in France and parts of Europe, they don't see these very often. All right, we're going to take a quick break. Have you noticed mosquitoes maybe biting a little more frequently right now? We're going to take a look at how climate change may be impacting the mosquito population. All right, some great news for Hampton Roads with the brand new U.S. Drought Monitor. This just dropped at 8:30 this morning, and I'm showing you the previous one. This is from last week. You'll notice how Virginia Beach, Chesapeake, this portion of North Carolina was abnormal dry. Now, not quite in official drought, but it was abnormally dry even here. Of course, this was so much better than weeks ago when we were at one point under severe drought. So that was how it was last week. The brand new one just came out. Look at that. We are no longer even abnormally dry for most of Virginia Beach, Chesapeake, eastern and southeastern Suffolk, and so much of North Carolina now in good shape. Also, just between Richmond and Petersburg, there's also another area that's in great shape. We still have moderate drought up on the peninsula, parts of the middle peninsula and out to the west, but this is a big improvement for most of Hampton Roads, and I'm happy to share that with you. I also want to show you how things look on the regional scale. So as we take a look, this was last week's drought monitor. You see all the areas under extreme drought, central parts of North Carolina and Virginia. Take a look at the new one. This just updating, and so much of that red has been taken out. Now it's moderate drought in these areas. Still a few areas with severe to extreme drought, but this is a big improvement from how we looked last week. So good news there. Now it is summer, and again, we've seen a lot of rain recently, which is why so much of the area is looking better. But with that additional moisture, you know that creates breeding grounds for mosquitoes. But these seasons are also lasting longer. Think about that. Meteorologist Taylor Stephenson takes a look at what's driving the trend and why there's also more concern about viruses.
As temperatures rise and humid and rainy days become more frequent due to climate change, mosquitoes are emerging earlier in the spring and remaining active later into the fall, extending the window for disease transmission. A new analysis from Climate Central examined mosquito disease days in 239 U.S. cities between 1970 and 2025. A mosquito disease day is one with temperatures that are favorable for mosquitoes to spread West Nile virus. The study found that 95% of cities saw an increase in these disease transmission days. The biggest increases occurred around the southeast, northeast, and northwest U.S. On average, cities now experience about 18 more mosquito disease days each year compared to the 1970s. Specifically in Norfolk, the city experiences 19 more mosquito disease days on average. Research also shows that mosquitoes are maturing at a quicker rate. Experts recommend reducing standing water around your home, using EPA-approved insect repellents, and wearing long sleeves and pants when mosquitoes are most active, especially around sunrise and sunset. For 13 News Now, I'm meteorologist Taylor Stephenson.
All right, we're going to stay dry for the next couple of days here in Hampton Roads. That's a quick live look outside up at Hampton. I'll have the weekend outlook after this. Welcome back to the Weather Desk. All right, today, tomorrow, and Saturday look really good for Hampton Roads. As we get into Sunday, you'll note the temperature's still a little bit below average, mid to upper 80s. It's close, but a degree or so below average, maybe a couple degrees below average. There will be chances for afternoon thunderstorms later on Sunday and Sunday night. Let's take a look at the beach forecast for today. You don't have to worry about storms today. You don't have to worry about rip currents either. Generally speaking, the rip current threat is low. Water temperature 77, the surf height just a couple of feet. That UV index, though, it is very high. Make sure you apply the sunscreen, have a hat and sunglasses. All right, out on the water. A little breezy early this morning. Things kind of settling down, but no small craft advisories. Things looking good for us out there. High tide at 10:30 and the low tide coming around 4:30 this afternoon. Nothing showing up on the satellite or radar images. Temperatures today near 86 degrees. We're going to see temperatures again staying close to or a little below average all the way through the middle of next week. Have a great one. We'll see you next time from the Weather Desk.